30 or so years ago, the Lord has touched James Joyne's heart to go and tell of the saving grace of Jesus to those who haven't heard it. He was then yet a successful engineer. In answer to that call, he enrolled in Bible school, quit his high-paying job, sold his house, cars, and other properties, and headed to the Philippines. James Joyce traveled across the world with only his faith and few earthly possessions to live by. He brought with him his wife Judy and 3 very young children. It was during the final months of 1980 that Pastor James Joyce of Georgia, USA, began scouting for a place to put up a church. Having met Pastor Patricia Falasol and Pastor Justino Tombrena in Guimaras, the men decided to settle in Oton and start a pioneering work. Oton was then hostile towards their first efforts, their doctrine being completely different from what the people had believed all their lives. The first worship service was conducted in a native hut in April 26, 1981 at Rizal Street, Oton. There were 30 children, 18 adults and young people in attendance. Pastor Joyce preached on salvation. There was no choir and Roger Bayona accompanied the singing with a guitar. From then on, a temporary bamboo nipa chapel became Calvary Baptist Church. In March 1982, the hut was transferred to its present site and the other buildings we now see were built. All the while, the Bible school trained its students and produced its first graduates in April of 1984. 2 years later, Calvary Baptist Academy was constructed and had its classes in June with 56 students. August 12, 1988 had been a very sad Sunday for the church. Pastor and Mrs. James Joyce bade CBC goodbye. Having felt that their work was completed here, their eyes were now once again turned to the other area in the globe where the message of salvation was most needful. They left for Mexico and turned over the care of the church to the locals. Pastor Falasol took the difficult responsibility of continuing what was left behind. A lot of events happened throughout the time until June of 1997 that Pastor Dave Rees, with the recommendation of Pastor James Joyce, joined the work as overseer. In February 3, 2002, Pastor Patricia Falasol turned over the responsibility to Pastor Justino Tombrena as pastor of Calvary Baptist Church. 2 months later, Pastor James Joyce was taken by the Lord. He died in an LPG tank explosion at Saltillo, Mexico. But even as he died, Calvary Baptist Church held on to the missionary principles from which the work was founded on. Today, on its 29th anniversary, we are still reaching on towards the goal of sending God's message of salvation to as many and as far as we can possibly reach. We don't know how long yet the Lord will tarry, but we pray and hope that at the end of our time, we shall have His "Well done."